Hello, I'm Jackie Schiff, ISTM Communications Manager. You're about to see a special interview I did with Professor Gerard Flaherty, who is concluding his term as president of ISTM. Gerard serves as Professor of Medical Education at the University of Galway, and Gerard was first elected to ISTM's executive board in 2014 and has held several leadership positions in the society. With more than 2 decades of clinical experience in travel medicine and more than 200 publications, Gerard has made remarkable contributions to the field. In our interview, he reflected on his presidency, shared his vision for the Society's future, and offered advice to new members. We also got to talk about a few of his favorite pastimes, which I think you'll find really interesting to hear about, and got a taste of his go to Irish sayings. I hope you will enjoy this insightful conversation with one of travel medicine's most distinguished voices.
Hi, Gerard. It's great to be here with you. Thank you for joining.
It's a pleasure, Jackie. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Well, let's get started with the first question. And I wanted to ask you to reflect on when you first assumed the role of ISTM president, which was 2 years ago now. You outlined some goals that were centered on strengthening unity, broadening opportunity, and deepening the society's sense of community. And I'd love you to, reflect on your term over the last 2 years and those goals. And when you think back, what achievements are you most gratified by?
Well, thanks, Jackie. It's hard to believe I'm in the dying hours of my presidency now, and I recall with great fondness the time we spent in Basel. I think these goals, obviously, there was a bit of wordplay involved in arriving at these goals, but I think for me they were really important pillars that helped to guide me throughout the last 2 years. And I refer to them quite a lot. I mean, they're posted on our website, and I don't know how many members of the public ever chance upon them, but I look to them frequently and try to ensure that I was sort of aligning my strategy or the strategy of the board with these goals. And I think we did make significant progress in the past 2 years. And every board in the ISTM tries to continue the good work of its predecessor and builds on their achievements. And really, it's very important to acknowledge those that have gone before you. In the case of this executive board, we had the great sadness of losing Peter Leggett, our wonderful and esteemed immediate past president, after just 4 months in the role. And that really dealt a big blow to the executive board. And obviously, it was a time of great sadness and loss. And for me, of course, when I think back the 2 years, I think of that loss. Peter and I were really very close friends. And I mean, he was just such a giant in the travel medicine community. So again, I'd just like to remind our members of that losing Peter was really a terrible blow. And I think I've hoped that our board would have done him proud. He was certainly a wonderful president himself. In thinking of the board's achievements, I think I'd prefer to cast them as the society's achievements, really. It's not me or the board. We're there to serve the society. So I think the society has made progress in the last 2 years. I think in the area of governance and oversight, particularly financial oversight, we've made good progress. And I think we've invested in important members of our support team. We no longer use the term secretariat. We abandoned that term quite early on in this board, and we now appropriately call our support staff the professional team. And I think the professionalization of that support structure, I hope has been apparent to our members. And I certainly think we've been able to offer better support to our members and to improve the communication we have with our members and with leaders of the society, members of the Leadership Council. And I thank you very much for your important role as our communications manager. You've brought significant qualities to that role. I think operationally we've become more efficient. We've had to make financial cutbacks, and many members won't be really that aware of those, but we have. We've certainly done what we can to reduce any excessive expenditure. And so we've had a lean budget the last 2 years, and I think we'll continue to make further cutbacks as time goes on until our membership grows again, and we'll be in a better opportunity to invest. But certainly, we've benefited from really strong search teams for a new Secretary Treasurer, and we were delighted to appoint Brian Stowe from Canada to that role. So Brian will take over the reins from our dear friend Mike Jones, who served the Society wonderfully well as Secretary Treasurer for the past 6 years. A really challenging role, actually. Mike served in that capacity with great distinction. And of course, we have just recently appointed our new executive director, and that person will be introduced to the Society formally in due course following the conference. We're really excited about that. But we've, of course, benefited hugely from Karen Gorleski's input, first in a consultative capacity and then as our interim executive director. And Karen has just been wonderful, and it's been such a pleasure working with her and learning from her and watching how she built the professional team and did so skillfully, and with such respect for the Society as well. She's like somebody who's really worked at ISTM for 10 years instead of just a year. We've formulated new vision and mission statements for the Society. They're on our website, and I think they do encapsulate what we're about much better. We introduced a code of conduct for our leaders and the executive board members. Our website was officially launched, and I think continues to improve. A website, as you know, should be a living thing. So it's never the finished piece. We're always trying to improve it and tweak it. But I think it is certainly a big improvement on the platform that we used to use. We've put quite an emphasis on mentorship as well, supporting new members. We do need to renew the Society and to rejuvenate it. And to do that successfully, we need to attract new members, perhaps from new places that we've never really targeted before. And we had a successful membership orientation or new attendee orientation at the conference in New Orleans, and certainly it was a delight to see over 100 new attendees attending that session. And I'm very grateful to the mentorship task force that we set up, led by Sheila Seed from the US, for the work in that regard. But the work is just beginning. There's a lot more we can do in that area. We've been strong in education, and that continued the fine work of previous boards. I think it's been educationally very solid 2 years. Our Travel Medicine Review and Update course has been, I think, a really flagship education activity. More and more successful every year. Really, really strong faculty, led, of course, by course director Sheila Mackle, and they've done a fine job. And I enjoy presenting on that every year. It's one of the highlights of the year for me personally. Our webinars have been really successful, very well supported. Very good member engagement, really high quality topics. And I think they're just going from strength to strength. People are very used to the webinar format now post-COVID. And I think we've really capitalized on that. So really delighted with the success of the webinars. The podcast team has been very busy. And here I'd like to pay particular tribute to my successor, Anne McCarthy. Anne has worked so closely with Aisha Khatib, Sarah McGuinness from the Digital Communications Committee, and Albie Defray. And they've done a really fine job in producing a great series of podcasts, and there's more coming out all the time. And the International Association for Medical Assistance to Travellers has been really supportive there. It's been a wonderful collaboration between ISTM and IAMAT. And I got to do my podcast debut, in fact. And the experience was not overly traumatic, so I'll probably come back for more. The CTH exam has been really positive the last few years, and now it's very much seen as a virtual exam. It's done online, it's proctored very professionally, and we will occasionally hold it in person to coincide with the CSTM conference, like we've done successfully in New Orleans with a really high uptake this year. So delighted to see that people still value the CTH credential as they should. It's a really very important qualification, and our examination committee does so much work behind the scenes, working with the professional team in producing these examinations. And I'd like to commend our outgoing examination committee chair, Pierre Landry from Switzerland, who's been at the helm for 4 years now and has done a fantastic job. We've introduced some innovation as well. I was really pleased that we were able to support the development of the primary travel doctor professional group. So we now have a home for those primary travel doctors who many provide the full spectrum of travel medicine services from pre, during, and post travel. So we're delighted with that. And their new steering council will be elected during the conference. And Rudy Zimmer has been really instrumental in bringing that together for us. Um, we have three new interest groups with the fourth on its way. So the three that now exist, delighted to say, are technology and travel health, led by Andrea Farnham from Switzerland, originally from the US. Mass gathering medicine, led by Haruna Rashid from Australia, and clinical tropical medicine, which will be the steering council will be chaired by Kyle Peterson, but it was founded and put together very expertly by Chris Coyle, who's a councillor on the executive board. So really delighted with those three, and I think they will bring a lot of energy and new activity to the society going forward. The fourth one, which I think is imminent, is being led by Professor Richard Franklin, who worked so closely with Peter Leggett in James Cook University in Australia, and that will focus on trauma and injuries, which I think Peter would have been very proud of because a lot of his research related to that area. I've enjoyed putting a greater focus on the health benefits of travel. We focus a lot on the risk, of course. It's so important to be able to communicate risk, but it is also important to recognize the health benefits of travel. And some of my invited speakers, or invited presentations as a speaker in the last 2 years related to this very topic, and I hope to do further work on that. But I've been very pleased with the reaction to it. Our leaders, our members of the public, this subject really resonates with them. They have for many years recognized that it's a beneficial thing to travel, but we don't talk about it enough in travel medicine. So it's been very gratifying to see the interest in that topic. We've done a lot of work on the regional development side, Jackie, and here we were delighted to be able to confer RCISTM status, RCSTM 8 status to the SLAMV conference that was held in Rio de Janeiro in August of 2020. At this stage, yes, 2024. And that was a very successful event with a really well attended travel medicine track. It was a collaboration between ourselves, the Latin American Society of Travel Medicine, and the Rio Society of Infectology. And I was really pleased to see the level of interest in South America. This is an area where I think we will experience much greater growth, membership growth in the years to come. We had a strong presence at the Asia Pacific Travel Health Society, which is a very well established regional society that was held in Kathmandu in September of 24. We went from there to support the Australasian College of Tropical Medicine. I think it was their annual Travel and Tropical Medicine Conference or Southern Cross Conference, and that was very well attended. It's a really fine conference, and that was one that Peter Leggett himself actually set up many years ago. We've made good progress in helping to develop travel medicine in Africa, and that's been very pleasing. I think there'll be further progress in that in the years to come, but we've been working very closely with the Pan-African Travel Medicine Federation, and we've just recently agreed to confer the designation of RCISTM 9 on their conference, which will be held in Tanzania in October of 2026. So that is very thrilling, actually. We're very pleased to be able to do that. And making good progress with particular countries as well, where we feel there's great potential and more to report on, hopefully, in the future. The Journal of Travel Medicine continues to be the flagship publication and the gem, really, the jewel in the crown of travel medicine. And it's gone from strength to strength, very, very highly ranked in multiple categories. And Elise Filder-Smith and her team have done an outstanding job. So we're delighted with that. Our Development and Planning Committee got off the ground during this term, and we were very pleased with the progress we made, particularly under Lynn Chen's chairpersonship. And Lynn, unfortunately, unfortunately for us, but very fortunate for Lynn, took up a role with the ACIP and was not in a position to remain as DPC chair. But she certainly was outstanding in that role, and we're currently hoping to find a permanent chair to replace Robert Stephan as interim chair. Robert has been great in that role, but I think there will be a lot of activity with the DPC in the years to come. It's really only just getting going now. We do need to diversify our revenue streams and bring in more revenue from different sources. And one of those things we'd like to do with that extra revenue is to support our research awards. And our research and awards committee have been very, very busy, and we'll be announcing this year's research award winners at the membership assembly in New Orleans. We've also introduced Pharmacist Professional Group Awards, and they'll be announced. And also the student chapter, which was being led by the PPGs, actually has made good progress as well. It was very nice to see some student volunteers from Tulane University at this conference in New Orleans. I think that's really good to see. I hope that we'll see more student members. I've certainly been encouraging my own students to join ISTM, and I'm very pleased when they contact me and say, "I've joined ISTM now." And I say, "Well, keep it up now. Don't give up that membership. And when you graduate, and you'll be paying a higher fee eventually, maintain involvement and make this your home." And so they're really enjoying it. So I think we've huge potential there to attract more student members. And of course, this conference in New Orleans has been a wonderful experience. We've worked so hard in preparing for it the last 3 years or so, just selecting New Orleans as the conference venue. You couldn't pick a better place. But our scientific program committee, I mean, have just been outstanding. They've worked so hard. Eric Holm has set a standard for all future SPC chairs. I mean, he just has been wonderful in that role, innovative, responsive, hardworking, supported by Colleen Lau as the co-chair and three very capable associate chairs. And our local organising committee, led by Susan McClellan, again, they've brought a really nice local and regional flavour to the proceedings. So I'm so grateful to them for all they've done. So these are the Society's achievements, and I think the Society should feel proud, but we should never get complacent. We have a lot more work to do. Many of these initiatives are just beginning, and we will need to support my successor, Anne McCarthy, and her executive board in helping to realise our strategy in the next 2 years and beyond.
Thank you, Gerard. To consider that all of that was just done in a 2 year period is really, really quite phenomenal. And spoken like a true leader, I think you've really understated your role in a lot of these things, and I know you've really played a huge role in getting these things off the ground and moving them along. So congratulations to you. I think there's a lot to be proud of. You did touch on one of these points, and that's obviously the incoming new executive director. There was a national search to find a new permanent executive director. And as you mentioned, that is now complete. And there will be an announcement in the coming weeks after the conference about who is going to assume that role. And I'd just love to get your thoughts on that. How do you see this leadership transition shaping the future of ISTM?
Oh, thanks, Jackie. So, I think the search committee, we put a lot of thought into the constituents of that committee, and I think we chose well in electing or selecting Rebecca Acosta as the chair. Rebecca did an absolutely wonderful job, and she chaired a really hard-working committee, and I'd like to salute their efforts, first of all. I think I'm really pleased with the outcome. I think the committee and the board ultimately appointed executive director of really high quality, somebody who brings significant skills and experience to the role. So I'm so excited to see this person getting settled in. And I know the person's been in observational capacity at CSTM 19, but I know will be eager to get started along with the new board. So I think it's a great time of renewal and refreshment. And we're delighted that Karen Garleski agreed to remain on in a supportive role as the new executive director finds their feet. I think that's very, very important. We're so grateful to Karen for that. I would hope that our new executive director, and I fully expect that they will, bring a lot of passion and fresh thinking to the role. And I think they will look at the society through a different lens. They bring great experience from a similar role with a very vibrant organization, and I think we will hopefully see a lot of very useful experience brought to bear. I think they will probably be interested in expanding our educational programs. We can do so much there. We can do a lot to improve our outreach to the public as a 501c3 organization in the United States. I'd like to see significant membership growth, but that takes time. We were hit really badly by COVID, and I think while we haven't seen any growth, at least there's been stability in the membership in the last 2 years. But I think now is the period for growth. And so I think there'll need to be a lot of work done with the membership committee, and I hope our executive director will work very closely with them. And, to improve membership engagement as well. We have so many wonderful volunteers throughout the society, but there are many members, I think, who have a lot to offer, but perhaps they never get deeply involved in the society because we don't do a good enough job of engaging them. So I would hope that our new executive director will be able to lead on that. I think we can network and collaborate much better with other groups externally that have some relevance to travel medicine and travel, with the travel industry, other travel professionals, members of the traveling public. So I'd like to think that our communication beyond the confines of our society will improve, because I think that would be a great source of new members. I'd hope that we will see more visibility for the society, so that people who are not into travel medicine will have heard of us and will see that there's some value to what we do, and perhaps might even join as lay members. I think there's great scope for lay membership, which is something we discussed before, actually under the previous board, but not something we've been able to execute yet. But I would hope that we'll make some progress with that under a new executive director. I think financial management has really been to the fore in the last 2 years. And again, Karen's arrival as interim executive director, Brian Stowe's appointment as the secretary treasurer designate has really helped to focus our minds. Jacqueline Simon as our financial controller. I mean, she's a certified public accountant. She's brought such important skills to this role. So much so we wonder how we ever managed before her. So it's really important that the new executive director continues that type of financial oversight. Our board has an important fiduciary responsibility, and so it is very, very important that we put the society back on a firm footing. We've had to invest significantly in the last 2 years. While we've cut back, as I've acknowledged, where we felt that expenditure could be trimmed. The presidential travel budget, for example, has been cut back by 50%. I was very, very happy to forgo all business class travel as a president. But it will make me unpopular with my successors. But I think it's important that these sort of excesses that crept in over the years, that they were stamped out. So we will have to continue to effectively budget and look beyond just the next financial year. Much better financial planning. And I think we've already made progress with that. I'd like to think that the new executive director will help to make the society more sustainable, Jackie. So just that we see a future beyond. We tend to go from conference to conference. That's been the cycle in ISTM. The conferences are so all consuming, and they absorb so much bandwidth, from the professional team and some of our leaders. But we do need to look beyond that, so that a lot of our strategic planning extends beyond the term of the next board. That continuity between boards is really very, very important. We have this custom, and your first question was based on it, around elaborating presidential goals. But sometimes that can render us a little short-sighted, because then there's a new set of goals for the next president, and people think, well, you're starting all over again. But we should see that there's continuity there. I think that's very, very important, and I think a new executive director will be important in achieving that. I would hope the new executive director would help to foster a culture of innovation. There's so much potential. We have so much skill amongst our members, and again, we should always be doing new things, not just doing the same things over and over again. We should always be introducing new things. And, dropping things that are no longer fit for purpose, are no longer relevant, and not be afraid to make those changes. We've had to make a lot of tough decisions the last 2 years, and sometimes, you face some resistance if you're trying to introduce a change that just goes against the way we've always done it. But I think it's important to do that, and I think a new executive director would not be afraid to lead on that and would work closely with the executive board. And it's also important, to make us more sustainable, but also more resilient in the face of emerging threats. I mean, COVID, again, was as an example of such a threat, but there are always threats on the horizon, and we have to be able to adapt to those. And then sometimes even, you know, um, just be more agile. And so sometimes it'll help to drive us in different directions, and we should be responsive to those opportunities. Um, and now we're very much dependent on technology, but I don't feel we use it effectively enough in ISTM yet, particularly AI. People sometimes reflect negatively on AI, but I think there's huge scope for use of data analytics in ISTM. I sometimes find it difficult to really drill down into the data I need to make decisions, especially around members. And so I think hopefully in the future we'll see greater application of AI, and to use that more effectively. But I think the new executive director will have the skills needed to catalyze the kind of progress that I'd like to see. But some of these are medium or long-term goals. There will be early successes and so on, but some of them will take a bit longer to realize.
Absolutely. Well, I think what's clear from your answer, Gerard, is that the society is definitely entering into a new period. There's lots of opportunity for, as you said, innovation and change. Um, I did want to go back to something you touched on in your answer, but I know it has been a discussion amongst the executive board, and that was that ISTM is registered as a 501(c)(3). I believe that was in the last 2 years, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And a component of that is public education. Is a piece of that designation. You did mention that, and sort of the opportunity to expand this, but would love to hear more of your thoughts on how you see ISTM and members contributing to a healthier traveling population. Sort of what's the grand vision there?
Okay. Um, yes, so I think that really the hard work on this was done under Lin Chen's presidency and Peter Leggett's presidency. So I think, we're now more used to being a 501(c)(3, and certain aspects of that were I suppose, finalized in the early stage of this board. But I think we need to constantly remember our obligations around this. And one of them is, as you correctly say, well, how do we reach out to the general public? I think everything we do in ISTM benefits travelers, but perhaps indirectly, because the research, the education that we oversee and publish, that informs the health advice that's given in travel clinics. And so I think it's important to remember that everything we do ultimately benefits the traveler, but perhaps we don't communicate directly with the traveler. I think that's something we could do more of. And I think the podcasts are a step in the right direction because they're very much directed at the lay public, and they've got very good traction online. And I think that's something we can exploit even more. We introduced fact sheets, of course. The Digital Communications Committee have been all over this, and Sarah McGuinness has done a fine job on these. And again, these are something that will be useful to the lay traveler. Travelers nowadays are very well informed, and they're often seeking information ahead of travel from sort of atypical sources that we would never have consulted in the past, like travel blogs and of course, obviously, generative AI. And it's important that we have a presence there. Some research I did before looked at the websites of professional healthcare organizations, for example, international or national cardiology society or diabetes federation. And these have a dual purpose of serving professionals and development of the scholarship around that, but also the lay public and the patients as well. But when you look at their websites, you find very little of any information for their patients about how to travel with that particular chronic illness, be it diabetes, asthma, mental health
Hmm.
disorders, and so on. So I think there's a great role there for ISTM in being the leaders and being the ones that provide that high quality information that ultimately will benefit the traveling public and make it perhaps more likely that people who travel with various physical or mental challenges would be more likely to travel for its health benefits. So I think we can do more there in that area. And my invited talks on the health benefits of travel, again, very well received by laypersons in the audience. So I think it's important that we try to connect with them a bit more. Some of what we do, it might seem just far removed from the needs of the individual traveler. So it's really, really important that we communicate that message well, and choose topics that are very resonant with the traveling public, and perhaps have public webinars that are free or for a nominal fee. Members of the public can just join and advertise them or publicize them very widely, and that's a great way to engage the traveling public. So we should be trying to serve them by bringing in some topics that I think are very relevant to their needs. And I think we also should collaborate better with other specialties that already do connect very well with the public. Travel medicine is really a crossroads specialty. It intersects with so many different other disciplines. And I think we should do a better job in having a presence at their conferences as well. And I think as individuals, as members, but particularly as ISTM leaders, and this is something I've highlighted to the outgoing executive board, it's important that they're all ambassadors for the society and advocates for healthy travel, so that they themselves follow the advice that they give in the pre-travel health consultation. And there were advocates not just for healthy travel, but also for sustainable travel. We've just recently agreed to change the name of the Responsible Travel Interest Group to the Sustainable Travel Interest Group, and that request came from the interest group themselves. So I think hopefully we can do more to engage with the public. But again, people like you, Jackie, who have that skill set around communicating and using social media effectively, we will really need your input. We're not experts in this. Very few of us really have any expertise in this. I mean, while we'll be content experts, we really need input from key people like you in order to translate this. And I think this will hopefully lead to a lot of very positive developments and bring in new members, lay members, over the next 2 years and beyond.
Absolutely. Well, that's very kind, Gerard, of you to say. Certainly of my skill set, but yes, I mean, I think the vision you carved out is certainly anyone who has an affinity for communications and communicating with the public. It's certainly a dream, right? Because so many of us do love to travel and see the
Mm.
world, and
Yeah.
to have folks from ISTM that are really subject matter experts able to speak authoritatively on things that people are wondering about. I certainly share your vision and see the opportunity there. So exciting times. I wanted to get to a few fun, well, certainly we've had fun discussing this first part of the interview, but just a little bit more a personal part, so that some of the members could get a better sense for you, those that haven't had the opportunity to meet you personally and sort of know your ISTM story. And so I wanted to ask you, Gerard. So you were, before you were president, you were an active member and very involved for many years. And if you could please share some of your favorite memories. I know it's probably hard to choose, but from some of your earlier years when you were involved with ISTM.
Oh dear, where to start? I think what comes to mind, Jackie, is actually I think a conference that was for me a real turning point in my ISTM journey was CSTM 14, which was held in Quebec City in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Very memorable conference. It really was. I was just stepping onto the board as a councillor for the next 4 years after that. So it was a conference I was suddenly very involved in it. Apart from just presenting my research at it, or chairing a session or giving a presentation, I had some committee leadership roles, and I remember one of them was to chair the highlights committee and to present the Congress highlights. Now, it hadn't been done before. To the best of my knowledge, it had not been done previously. So it was a nice idea. So this is the person that stands up on the last day, just before it finishes, and basically summarizes or gives an account of the previous 5 days. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. I think at the time I didn't realize how difficult it was. Only looking back on it, I appreciate it. It was actually quite a difficult thing to do because you had to have, you had to have eyes in the back of your head. You had to be able to reflect the content of the conference, but also the mood and the tone.
Mm.
And you couldn't attend every session yourself, so you had to coordinate a panel of people that would sort of attend different sessions and report back. Every day we would meet twice a day, and we would, get a sense for how the conference was going. And then I had to get the slides of those individuals that I decided to include in my summary
Wow.
presentation. So it all had to be done on the hoof, and it did mean that I perhaps I couldn't enjoy the conference as usual as a delegate because I had to be constantly looking at the content. But it went on very well. I mean, I was almost embarrassed giving my presentation because I thought you just can't capture the complexity of the conference and the value of it. But people were very appreciative of it, I have to say, and people were so kind and warm around that. And I thought this is a very nice, happy place to be. This is a friendly group. But at the opening ceremony in Quebec City. I remember being greeted by Lynn Chen, and Lynn knew I was coming onto the board and that I had some roles at the conference. She was just so warm and friendly and welcoming. I mean, she just went out of her way, and I'd not met her face to face before. I mean, even though I'd admired her work and cited over many years. And I have to say, that sort of personal touch from somebody like Lynn and many of her American colleagues, I have to say, the warmth from the American travel medicine community was really very touching, I have to say. And these were people that I greatly admired as leaders in travel medicine. And I have to say, that makes a big difference. It really does when somebody whom you admire goes out of the way to make you feel welcome and validated. I think it's something we've tried to do with new members as well. We should never take our eye off that because it does make a big difference to people's future engagement. And Robert Steffen, of course, whom we all love as a co-founder of ISTM. Robert has been quietly mentoring ISTM leaders and developing them over the years, in a quiet, effective way, and words of encouragement from people like Robert, from Fiona Ganazzi, who was the only other, I think, president from the British Isles. It's just myself and Fiona. Yes, I think so. And Fiona, again, I remember in an email where she said she was really pleased you know, um, that I was going to be a counselor. And again, Fiona was actually one of my teachers when I first did the diploma in travel medicine in Glasgow
Mm.
all those years ago. I mean, it's over 20 years ago at this stage. And so, it's so nice to get that encouragement from your former teacher. So it's really important that we do that now for the newer members coming up because there's a lot of really enthusiastic members, and all they need is that bit of encouragement. And we shouldn't underestimate the value of doing that. And I think I've certainly learned myself from those sort of experiences. So they're just some of them, but I was really pleased in New Orleans to be able to host a president's reception for all of the past presidents who are able to attend the conference, and a few other individuals as well. But delighted that we're able to do that, and this is my way of paying homage to these fine individuals, and because their encouragement really helped me along in my own career in travel medicine, and yet they're still actively engaged with the society. I think once you've been a president of ISTM, there's really an expectation that you will remain involved and loyal to the society forever, which is really a great thing. I mean, I think that is something that I think we're very proud of. So I was very pleased to be able to personally sponsor that event, and delighted that so many of the presidents were able to attend the conference in New Orleans.
Excellent. Gerard, let me also ask you just, I mean, you've talked about how ISTM has, I would say, been a source of mentorship, or introduced you to mentors in your career and people that have sort of helped you along. In that vein, what advice do you have for early career travel medicine specialists who might be just beginning their involvement in ISTM? And obviously, you mentioned that this is an area, a sort of a segment of membership you'd love to see grow. And so, you know, thinking back on those years and just getting started, how can they expect to have sort of the kind of involvement that you've had with ISTM? What are your
Okay,
recommendations?
good question. My advice to them would be to immerse themselves in ISTM. I mean, consider ISTM the top table in travel medicine, and just dive in, just get involved, show willingness to serve, to contribute, to distort or paraphrase the words of the Irish American president, John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your society can do for you, ask what you can do for your society. I think if you approach it with in a spirit of service, I think that's the right mindset to have. I think the benefits for their own career progression, it could be back in their own country, could be in if they're especially if they have an academic position. I think they'll be indirect and they may follow, but the key thing is, what can they contribute to the society? We have such a wonderful community of volunteers, Jackie. The society could not function without their input. We're so dependent on them, and that's the way it should be. It should be volunteer led, and I would encourage people to consider what they might be able to bring to the society. But there's so many learning opportunities for early career travel medicine practitioners, and I would love to see them really engage with our annual course, with a webinar series, and ultimately progress to being able to actually moderate a webinar or present at a webinar. So to go from being um, consumers of education and ISTM to being generators of it over a period of time. I think that's a great journey to go on. The CTH credential I've mentioned, I think that's something they should all aspire to, and we'd love to be able to advise them about that because that's something they mightn't be sure when they should take it. Some people underestimate their readiness for that. And I would encourage them to really get that as soon as possible. That is one of the criteria that's acceptable for the application towards fellowship of the society, which again is something that they could aspire to, probably 5 to 10 years after joining ISTM. And I think volunteer roles are a great way to get involved and to get to know the society well. And this could be at the level of an interest group or professional group, perhaps even a committee, perhaps finding themselves on the leadership council as a chair of a committee, and this is so there's a real opportunity for them there to progress in the society, and they should be active at CSTM. I mean, CSTM, I really feel that there's an onus on a member to attend their biennial conference. I think this is very, very important. Um, uh, of course, it's at everybody's discretion, but I really feel we should be supporting our biennial conference. It's so important for the society to have a successful conference. And there's so many ways that people can help out. But when the call goes out for new members of the scientific program committee, they should put up their hand and put themselves forward. And they could find themselves, chairing an awards committee or reviewing abstracts or moderating a session. These are all ways that they can bring great value to the society. They can become a reviewer for Journal of Travel Medicine. They can put themselves forward and contact the Annalise Filter Smith, and if she deems them suitable, that might be something that they can do, and that will actually really give them a very close connection with the society when they start to review manuscripts, and it's a huge benefit. Not everybody will be ready for that from day one. It takes a while to get to that stage. And of course, they should submit their work, their finest work, to Journal of Travel Medicine. And that's another way that they can engage. And they can become better known then, if they're an author and papers published in the journal. And that can lead to invitations to present at our conference. And they can apply for a research award. This is a great way to fund a research project. And they're very competitive, of course. But this is another thing I would encourage them to do. And I suppose also I would like to think that the early career members would, spread the word about ISTM, bring in new members, you know, um, let their own network know about us because it might be that their specialty isn't travel or tropical medicine. It might be something allied or even something quite far away from travel medicine, but yet they have an interest in it. They could be practicing um, gerontologist, for example, and they could see the value of understanding about the health benefits and risks of travel in the older traveler. And again, they should go back to their community then in geriatrics and or care of the older person and spread the word about the society. So I think there's so much they can do for the society. So they'd be perhaps some suggestions I would make. But the most important thing is to dive in there. Don't be afraid, don't be too tentative, and don't be shy to approach the leaders. It's a very friendly, intimate society, and as I experienced, in the early days, it's easy to approach people, and people are very warm and friendly. And if you are keen to make a contribution to the society, this will be very positively received.
Excellent, Gerard. And yeah, just to underscore your point, about supporting CISTM, and that's obviously where you get those fantastic in-person opportunities to meet with these, various people that you've mentioned who are already in leadership roles, and you can, ask them and form a relationship so that you better understand, the opportunities, some of the many opportunities that you laid out here. So, just
Exactly
wanted
so.
to underscore that point. In doing some research for this interview, I did not know this about you, but I learned that you're an avid birder. And so I wanted to ask you about this interesting hobby, how you first got interested in birds, and also obviously with it being ISTM and travel, how your travels have contributed to, furthering your interest in birds.
Oh my goodness, Jackie, I think you've been talking to Karen about this because
How
Karen
did
and
you
myself,
guess?
we often talk about bird watching. She sends me wonderful pictures of an American bald eagle that lives nearby. And I mean, it's just, she's teasing me with this eagle because we have a limited number of eagle species in Ireland. They've all been reintroduced. So yes, I'd say don't know if you could even call me a birder. I'm probably an enthusiast. Definitely not a bird ticker. These people can be quite obsessional about recording every little bird species, and they travel very long distances. I can't imagine what it's like in the States, just to see a very rare bird, maybe a passage migrant that the wind blew in, and they spend a lot of money traveling around the country looking for these rare birds. So I'm not in that category, I have to say. But I've always been interested in bird life. As a child, as a young boy, I loved dinosaurs. And this is a common thing for young kids. But I love dinosaurs. Of course, the birds um, are they're genetically related to the dinosaurs through Archaeopteryx. So when I see birds, I guess I'm seeing the dinosaurs of my youth. And I was always surrounded by trees growing up, and have a great love of trees, great appreciation for trees and forest bathing as it's called in Japan. And I guess where you have trees, you often have birds. And so I travel a lot. Obviously, I've been to over 100 countries. And I bring my binoculars on a lot of these trips. And I always buy a local bird guide. So I have quite a few of these at this stage. Sometimes I get it before I go so that if I do see an unusual bird, I can look it up. So I kind of like the differential diagnosis of looking up birds and trying to figure out which bird is that because they're all so subtly different. And I'm certainly not expert in it, but I do know people who are able to tell different different birds apart with great skill. I'm very amateur, I have to say, but I do often recognize birds from the sound. So I like when I'm sort of
Oh,
walking along to hear a bird, and if I'm walking with sort of friends or family, I'll often say, "Oh, did you hear the stone chat?" and they won't have heard it at all because they're not tuned into the frequency. But then I say,
Yeah.
listen again. Now you can hear it. And so I do like I like all of that. I like the fact that birds, many of them, not all, migrate. So that's very resonant as a travel medicine expert. I'm fascinated by the distances they cover
Mm.
and the skill with which they reach their destination. I mean, in Galway, in the west of Ireland, where I live, um, our um, our swallows come from the Eastern Cape in South Africa. That's where they've been traced to, and so
Wow.
they migrate to us every April or so, and they might leave September or October,
Mm.
and that's an extraordinary thing. I mean, it really ushers in the summer every year for us. And there's a great reassurance in seeing that those sort of natural cycles are being preserved. So I think I get great comfort from that, as do so many other people. But of course, I'm quite nerdy when it comes to these things, and I have a habit of turning a hobby into an academic pursuit. So of course, I have a certificate in bird behavior and a certificate in ornithology to accompany this passion. But no, it's something I enjoy. And when you travel, there's very often greater species diversity in your
Mm.
destination. And some of the trips I've been on have been just pure bird watching trips, like a trip to the Gambia in West Africa years
Wow.
ago. I mean, it's an extraordinary place. I mean, around the equator, there's just so many wonderful uh, destinations for bird watching. But in the British Isles, there's actually a lot of bird species, more than you might think. Um, Ireland alone, there's over 450 bird species recorded. And then there'd be a lot of passage migrants that sort of get blown in by the wind, which will never breed here, but they just are found here briefly. But in Britain, in sort of mainland Britain, there would be more than that. It'd be well over 600 species. So you don't even have to go beyond the British Isles to actually see a lot of birds here. And there's some species I haven't seen yet. But I am drawn to countries with lots of trees. Some countries have no trees at all. And one of those, or hardly any, just because it's too cold. One of those I happen to be traveling to in August. Um, it's a trip I've always wanted to do, and I've always been fascinated by the country as a child. So in August, I'm going to a country that has birds for sure, but very few trees. So there'll be different kinds of birds, and some of them are actually migrants that come from their country to ours in the winter. And that country is Greenland. So I'm really looking forward
Oh,
to that.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, indeed, I could talk about birds all day, Jackie, but I don't want to bore you.
Well, you've invited many more questions, Gerard, but I will leave that for after the interview. But and now, so I wanted to end on a question that pays homage in a sense to your heritage, your Irish heritage, which I know you are proud of. And I know this is a little bit like choosing your favorite child, but do you have a favorite Irish phrase or saying that you could share with us?
Well, thank you for tipping me off about this question in advance because I gave it some thought over the last few days, and there's so many wonderful old sayings. Now, every language, of course, has them, so I'm familiar with the ones in Irish or Gaelic, but we tend to use them in everyday parlance, and they have just a clever way of expressing a lot in few words. So I picked out, I think, four, but three of them relate to the presidential goals as you outlined earlier. So for unity, the one I would come up with would be Ní neart go cur le chéile, which literally means there is no strength unless there's togetherness. So in other words, unity is strength. So I really like that one. So if we all work together towards a common purpose, we can achieve great things. If we're divided and pulling in different directions, you never get the same degree of progress. So for me, that's a very important proverb or seanchal. For community, I like this one. Ar sco a chéile a warren na daoine. So that literally means in the shadow. So people live in each other's shadows. So we were all dependent on each other. This idea of being dependent on each other as well. You can never achieve everything alone. You have to work together. So similar in a way, but the community is important. And then the third one, I suppose, opportunity is one you'd be very familiar with, but we have it in Irish as well. Búil an Iran che, which literally means strike the hot iron, or strike while the iron is
Sounds
hot.
hot.
So yeah, so we've tried to do that over the last 2 years, and exploit opportunities as they've arisen, as well as planning. We've also tried to pivot where an opportunity arose, and I think we have to be alert to that as time goes on. Sometimes opportunities are in disguise, and you just have to seize them. And then one I really like, which I think is so true, and I think I've mentioned it in maybe talks before, being siúlach scéalach, which means the traveler has stories to tell. So travelers have tales to tell or stories to tell. So I think when people travel, it's a great source of conversation and ideas. And I think that's something that it's one of the benefits of travel. You become more interesting maybe because you've more things you can talk about, and also more points of connection with other people as well. So being Shulik Skalak. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to reflect on those Irish proverbs. And there's wisdom in every language. Irish is no different. And I think travel allows us to tap into that wisdom. And it's one of the great things you get as a traveler. You get richer because of the wisdom you acquire.
Couldn't have said it better, Gerard. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and just hearing some of your reflections on your time with ISTM and your time as president. Thank you for your service, and yeah, it's great to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Jackie. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. And could I just, before I finish, um, wish every success to my successor in this role, Anne McCarthy from Canada. Anne is, I think, just the fourth, and I hope that's right, fourth female president of ISTM. I think this is
Mm.
very important. It's been very male dominated, so I think Anne and others will help to change that. So I'm very proud of her. She's been an excellent president-elect, so supportive, and um, she had to step up to a lot of roles that wouldn't normally be undertaken by the president-elect um, after Peter's passing. So I'm very, very grateful to Anne for doing that, and she did so very willingly. So I wish her and the new executive board every success. I think she's the second Canadian president. So really hope that she has a very successful tenure, and I'll support her in every way possible. And again, thank you to all of our members, all of our volunteers, all of our leaders, and to our outstanding professional team. You've been an absolute joy to work with.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thanks, Jackie.